last hour is that Stalin, because of all the rats, the Russian spy rats among our administrative rats in the U.S. military and bureaucracy over there, they had informed Stalin that George Patton was militating against him and his conquest of Europe, which ultimately was accomplished, and Stalin wanted him dead, yes?
Yes, he did, and this is what Skubik will tell us, but Stalin knew that he was that Patton was the last bulwark against him. And wanted him dead. And what should I get into Skubik now?
Yeah, sure. And you got us, Bob. I just wanted to make sure that one note was made that the and you'll explain this as you talk about Skubik, because Skubik, who was also a loyal American, his Ukrainian contacts kept telling him, "Hey, General Patton's going to get it.
Yeah,
do something. We're telling you."
Stephen J. Skubik is a CIC agent. They were sort of they no longer exist. They were too powerful. They could go in and their main job at that point was to find Nazis and bring them to justice. But in Skubik's case, because he had been brought up by Ukrainian parents, he's an orphan. He was set to go involve himself with the Russians, and that's where his job was. And the Ukrainians, who have always been dominated by the Russians, but who are fierce independents, they kept telling him, not once but 3 times, by really the top Ukrainian sources, told him that Stalin had put Patton on a hit list, and he was going to kill him. And Skubik went back to tell his people that. He didn't even write reports about it. Well, he wrote reports about it, but he went right to the top, and he was told, well, you got to go to the OSS. And he was finally brought before Wild Bill Donovan, who originally, and whom Bazada tells me is the key factor in here.
And who was answerable to one person on the face of the earth.
Yeah.
Who was
FDR. And that's it. He was only answerable to the president. Anyway, Skubik tries 3 times to get this stopped, and he is literally chased out of Germany after the death of Patton. He fears for his life, and he leaves Germany, and does so he lives in fear for 5 or 6 years later, and he later wrote a book about this for his family. I have to say, a very badly written book, but a gold mine for a person like me, because I took it and I outlined it and I used what he said. It was badly written, but it gave me pieces of information that I could put together to put his story together, and his story is there. So you had both Bazada being told, going from this stop Patton order to eventually being called in a series of meetings with Donovan, the last of which is really convincing. They're alone, and this is after the war, and it's about 3 months before Patton is killed. And Donovan says, we've got this great patriot, and he's done so much for us, but now he is threatening to undo it all. And
he's talking to Douglas Bazada at this point.
He's talking to Douglas Bazada.
Now, for those of you who have just joined us, just real quick, Douglas Bazada, we spent all last hour talking about him, but he is essentially the 1945 equivalent of a CIA field agent who'd been very active during the war, annihilated lots of people, coordinated the Maquis and which is the French resistance, and did amazing feats of heroism against the Germans before the invasion of at Normandy. So now he's in front of the head of the forerunner of the CIA, the OSS, Office of Strategic Services, Wild Bill Donovan, answerable only to the President of the United States. And this man, Wild Bill Donovan, who hated that CIA agent that you just mentioned because he kept bringing up the assassination plot, but now Donovan is telling our Jedburgh, our agent of note here, Mr. Bazada, to the following.
And Bazada is the OSS assassin. There were others, but he was a key one. And quietly he says, we've got to do something about this. And Bazada, who didn't like Donovan, who thought he was kind of a phony, But he always played up to him, and he said, "Well, what would you have me do, sir?" And he says, "Well, you've got to do what what is needed." And Bezada says, "You mean kill him, sir?" "Yes, you do what you have to do." Now that, in real short terms, is what is the day the order was given. But anyway, Skubik, totally unknown to Bezada, and they never knew each other at all. Skubik got onto this from the Russian side, and I believe, and you will read in Target Patent, it was a joint OSS NKVD action that set up the accident, which we'll now talk about, in which he is killed. Should I go on here?
That's a very important premise, though, folks. I hope you caught that. It's gotten a little bit complicated. The CIC, and what does that stand for again?
That was the counterintelligence Corps.
Right, and these people were all over Europe, making sure to catch Nazis running away, and making sure the right people were, protected, and other people were captured, and all the rest of it. They're very powerful. They no longer exist. But this is an entirely different organization than the OSS and Douglas Bezada, the assassin. And we have an agent here who self-published a book and told his story of his Ukrainian contacts. He spoke fluent Ukrainian. It was his first language. And he was told again and again by these Ukrainian contacts that Stalin is sending assassins to kill Patton. It's going to happen. Of course, that agent, and help me with his name, Cedric, I keep mispronouncing it. Doug, it's Stephen J. Skubik. Stephen J. Skubik, the CIA agent, I'm just reiterating so people can get on the path here that we're on. He kept going to the head of the OSS, or was delivered to the head of the OSS to report these things, and the OSS chief, Wild Bill Donovan, who was working for the One Worlders and Roosevelt, just kept getting more angry with these reports. He knew damn well what was going on.
They jailed him.
Well, let's tell what happened then, and tell about this joint effort to annihilate the only really top-ranking American in the whole joint.
So those two had independently verified that this is going on for me, and that's big in my opinion. So
no knowledge of one another.
No knowledge of one another ever. They never talked, never knew about each other or anything else. And both are dead now. But anyway, that is going on, and I think we can go back now to talk about the accident.
Yes, please.
This is December 9th. 1945. It's a cold Sunday. Patton has been banished. They no longer need him. He did his work saving their butts. Excuse my language. But now that the war's over, they've banished him to a little backwater in Germany, and he's about to go home, and he's going to spill the beans and start agitating for fighting the Russians and tell secrets that would ruin the careers of some of the great people later on in our future. And he decides, because he's a hunter, to go on a hunting trip the last day. It's a Sunday. And that morning they drive the 100 miles down the Autobahn, and they come off at Mannheim. There's a little small street. It's a two-way street, and it's full of it's all been bombed out and everything. And they have to stop for a train, and they're at the railroad tracks. And when the train passes, the car that Patton is in, which is a Cadillac limousine, a large limousine with a large back area in it, and there's himself on the right side in the back seat. There is his aide, General Gay, on the left seat in the back, across from him on the same seat. And then there's the driver, Woodring, and they start up. They're not going very fast. And now I'm gonna tell you stuff that develops later on in the book. But the driver, Woodring, is one of the few who's ever talked about this. And he says that there was a truck up on the opposite of him, maybe 300-400 yards ahead of him. It's an army truck. And when they start up from there after the train passes, this truck pulls onto the road and it starts going slowly, coming towards them. The two vehicles are coming at each other. All of a sudden, when they get abreast, the truck turns in front of Patton's limousine. No signal, no nothing. There's nothing that Woodrick can do but try